of you beautiful, amazing people. Welcome into episode 16 of Questions for Reflection. I'm Susan Farmer, and this is where we explore planetary energies and how they shape our experiences. So grab your journal, grab whatever, hot cocoa, something to take notes on. Sometimes I just like talking into things, whatever you need to help you start tracking. If you're interested in astrology and energy and planets, you've got to start tracking so you understand how it feels to you and if it really does affect you. Today we're diving into a topic that is just, it's so fascinating. All things are just fascinating to me. Like, I love diving deep. So this topic shows up in every single group dynamic, and that is drama. Drama. Whether you're blunt and bold, or you prefer to keep things more subtle and under the surface, we all deal with it. Think. So really think, like, do I handle conflict and drama head on, or do I tend to avoid it? Okay. Is that it? This part out? Okay. I thought I skipped stuff and I didn't. So, do I tend to handle conflict and drama head on, or do I tend to avoid it, letting things brew underneath the surface? In astrology, the way we express and perceive drama can be seen through planetary placements. There are so many, and there's so many that can be put together in so many different ways. This is just kind of more a general, subtle overview. So what started this for me? Well, I had a conversation with a friend who thought someone in our group was stirring up drama just because they said exactly what they were thinking, right? So, but to me, that's not drama at all. To me, that's just being direct and honest. And I value honesty hugely. So in fact, I feel like the people who cause drama are the ones who talk behind people's back or move in little sneaky under the surface ways. So that is our topic today, and I'm really excited to dive into it. But before that, I want to remind you of the 20% off sale going on for video readings. They are awesome. You get so much information. They are 1 straight hour of me going over stuff in your chart for your topic of choice. In the last video, or the last episode, that was episode 15, and it aired on October 18th. If you want to see, I took people through the steps on the website as to how to get there. The code is QFR, Questions for Reflection, uppercase QFR, and you will get a 20% off promotion if you put it in. Also, I have a goal, and please, if you don't mind, help me reach it. I'm just barely starting out the podcasts and really trying to finally feeling comfortable. Oddly enough, people don't see me as this, but I kind of like to hide in the shadows a bit in certain situations, right? And I would like to get to 100 subscribers on my YouTube by Christmas, or the end of the year. Sorry, the end of the year. Better yet, the winter. I was going to say equinox. Is it whatever, the winter thingy? Which, yes, solstice. Okay, is that right? No. Anyway, when the sun's into Capricorn, I am having a total brain freeze. Probably because I'm uncomfortable asking this kind of stuff, but I would be really cool to see my stuff grow. And if my podcasts are growing, that means people are learning how to interpret and see little different characteristics in themselves, learning how to work with it. And what my goal is to teach people so much of the energies and characteristics that they no longer need anyone or anything to tell them or help them interpret it. That's my goal. So if I get to that 100 mark by the end of the year, which I know sounds so silly, but I don't know, I think it would be super cool. So if you don't mind liking, subscribing, hitting follow, I would really appreciate that. So here is the question for reflection for this episode. Do you think directness or blunt honesty causes more drama, or does subtle manipulation and behind the scenes gossip? So how do you feel when you're in a group? What do you want? Do you want people to be more direct? Does that make you comfortable, or would you prefer indirect? And how do you think the people around you are wired? Like you're really close one-on-one people, and could figuring this out really help you to see others for who they are and maybe have a little more understanding, and with interactions with one another, it could just become a little more peaceful. I don't know. I just found this conversation I was talking to my friend, and gosh, we've been friends for like over 20 years, and this group of people, and he was talking about, I was like, well, how's blah blah? I haven't been in touch for a minute, I've had stuff going on. And he said, well, I'm blah blah blah. I'm not going to say names. Let's say Teresa. I don't know. Teresa is back, and I'm really happy, and it's going to be super fun. And at the same time, I kind of feel like when she's around, there's a lot of drama. I'm like, I'm listening to this, and I'm like, that's not how I see her at all. And I said that, I let them finish, and I said, I don't see that at all. I see that Teresa is, exactly where you stand with her at all times on every subject, and I appreciate that. I find that actually a pro, or a good mark, versus the people, and this was our conversation, versus the people who I feel like talk behind people's back and try to maneuver things like in this roundabout weird way. Ugh. So, it was interesting. We really dove into this topic, and I said, what do you think causes people, and this is how all conversations with me go, if you have time, by the way, why do you think that is? I said, why do you think you feel this and I feel this? So we really started talking about just the different interactions, and he said, I just feel like when we're in a group, it causes things to be a little uncomfortable. Casey, be quiet! God. Like every time I start filming, he goes into the kitchen and starts banging shit all over. Okay. I'm gonna pause for a minute and let him get out of there. Okay, hopefully this makes sense where I start again. Jeez. And we have a big plane. So if this is as fascinating to you as it is to me, think about my class. Like, this is what my class is going to be over. Like, what are these different wirings and things within us that cause us to look at things or feel things a certain way? So, I was in this conversation, and we dove deeply into the different things. Like, why do you think causes that? And, the Well, I think it creates a tension within the group. So I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So we kind of talked about that. And I also brought up, like, why do you think people that are blunt speakers are labeled as drama and troublemakers and kind of get a bad rap versus, in my opinion, the people who do the most damage are the ones who lie to your face and talk behind your back. And anyway, it was just this really cool conversation, and we both just kind of got to where, like, okay, yes. So the blunt speaking, the directness is probably all good. And you could do it maybe in a less public place. That's kind of what we came to. But what do you think? We're diving in to the dynamics of drama. And particularly, we are going to look at first Mars, then Mercury, and then Pluto, because they all kind of speak to this. Because really, what is it? It's our communication style, right? It's the way we um, go after life, the action and the intention behind our communication style. And then are we manipulative? Are we not manipulative? All that kind of stuff. So we're going to be diving into those Mars, Mercury, and Pluto. And that will all speak to, like, are you outspoken? Do you prefer to operate behind the scenes? So just start thinking about that. Like, do I handle conflict and drama head on, right? Head on, or do I tend to avoid it, letting things brew underneath the surface? Or do I just go talk to other people about it? So, which one are you? Who are your loved ones? Like, if we can tap into all this, we can start understanding things. So, Mars. We're going to start with Mars. Mars is assertiveness, it is action, boldness, how you approach confrontation. Communication wise, it's about how you get things out in the open. Like, how do you want to do it? So, it's not necessarily the style, it's how you do your communication style. So, someone with a really strong Mars energy is going to tend to be more outspoken. They're going to confront issues like right on, head on, and they're going to be seen as probably direct and blunt. This can be caused and perceived, sorry, this can be perceived more as causing drama, but really it's more about getting things out in the open and valuing, like, having this strong moral value for honesty. So it's both of those. Not saying they're right or wrong, that's just what is behind it. So something you would start thinking about is, how do you confront conflict? Do you do it immediately or do you shy away? And how has this affected your relationships with people? So look at Mars in your chart and ask yourself, do I tend to address conflict head on? Do I have to think about it? I mean, I know for me, I have to think about things. I know I have a reputation as being really blunt and direct, but for me, and you would see it in my chart in 1,000 different ways, right? I have to know what I think about something, and it takes me a minute. I usually have to step back, get away from people because of all my water, and be like, well, what do I think about this? If I already know my opinion, boom, you're going to hear it because I'm fire. I have a fire Mars. So look at your stuff. If you don't know what some of your signs and houses are, so the sign would tell you, how are you going to do it? It's like the archetype, right? And then the house would say, and where are you more inclined to do this? Where is this going to come out more for you? We're not really going to go into the nitty gritty. We're going to go over elements at the end. So yeah, I think I forgot to say that at the first, so I'm sorry if I did. We're going to go over elements at the end, but that's going to be real quick. So moving on to Mercury. So this is what really governs your communication style. Mercury is neutral. Just Mercury itself is neutral. Now, what it's sitting with, or if it's conjunct another planet, meaning they're together, or it's in an aspect, meaning they talk to each other, that's going to flavor. Sect is also going to flavor your Mars. And if you don't know what that means, throw it out. Who cares, right? If you do, take that into consideration. Did I say Mars? Yes. Okay. Oh my gosh, my brain. Sect is going to affect your Mars and your Mercury. Well, sect's going to affect everything. So if you don't know what that means, throw it out. So the Mercury is going to tell you how you think, communicate, and its influence shows us whether we communicate openly or more subtly. So some placements are outspoken and they are unafraid to speak their minds. They value truth over fact, while other placements can be more indirect and they would rather not have the tension. They prefer diplomacy or even avoidance. So sometimes, not all the time, that diplomacy, probably not diplomacy. I'm going to say diplomacy is going to stay pretty straightforward, but that avoidance, now that can lead to gossip and behind the scenes conversation. So are you not comfortable enough with yourself or the people around you to say what you really feel, even if it's in a more subtle or indirect way? So think about your Mercury placement. Are you someone who says it bluntly, or do you try to smooth things over? So how does your communication style affect the group dynamics? Is it more open and direct, or do you find yourself sharing thoughts with certain people and not others? Now, that doesn't necessarily mean gossipy. It just means you feel more the ability to share things with certain people more than others. That doesn't mean you have to be talking about people or stirring up what I call drama, stirring up shiz in the background. Which one are you? And how does this affect the dynamics for you in groups or with your family or whatever? And can you place that on other people you know? Can you see like, oh, this is their communication style, and then the way they take action in this way is their Mars. So maybe you have a Mercury in Gemini. So you're probably going to talk, you're probably going to communicate a lot. You would probably say things to people and want to really communicate about it. Mars is strong in Gemini. It appreciates being there. And then say you have your Mars in Cancer. So you're going to talk a lot about things, but you're going to do it in a really indirect, circuitous way because Mars in Cancer is a little bogged down. It doesn't really know. So maybe you're going to talk a lot and you're going to say a lot of words, but the words you use or the point you make, you're going to be a little more insecure about it. Or just you want things totally indirect. Gemini does have a reputation for being gossipy. They really have to watch it and stirring stuff up in the background. And maybe that's how that Mars would come out. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. Think about yours and what that means in your life, and then think about other people and see if you know their placements, how you see it coming out. So now we're going to move to Pluto. Pluto is the planet of transformation, power, and hidden forces, and it often operates beneath the surface. It deals with manipulation and control. People with strong Pluto energy, they often operate more behind the scenes, trying to deal with and maneuver energetic flows in subtle, powerful ways. So the dynamic is a little bit more under the surface. Now, some people with a Pluto that isn't a strong placement maybe isn't even going to affect this in any way for you. You just, it's about getting to know your chart. So someone with this type of Pluto can influence and create tension in a group without overt confrontation, and it can make their actions harder to call out as drama, right? Because they're just kind of doing, they're wielding, they see 5 steps ahead, and they're getting you to it. I'm trying to think. I know I watch shows all the time where you can see, like with lawyers or whatever, they're saying certain things, or pushing the way someone else thinks about a topic. They're kind of 5 steps ahead, and they are manipulating slash maneuvering the outcome to be how they want it to be. But it's usually, sometimes people don't even ever see it, or it's usually after the fact. People can look back and be like, oh, okay, so that can also be used for good or bad, evil or spirituality, whatever, right? So where's Pluto in your chart? And are you more comfortable working in the background and influencing things in more subtle ways? Do you even care, right? Do you even care to do this? Or are you just like over here, like whatever, does it matter? Right? And how does this, if you do it, can you see if it leads to any tension in your relationships? Or are you just so far ahead of the curve that there isn't any? And then, are there situations where you hold back your power or influence? And then how does that affect the group dynamics? So think about all of that. Now, as far as elements go, a fire, Mercury, Mars, where really Pluto is more about where it is. If it's in Scorpio, but I mean, it sits in a planet, and it sits in a sign for like 15 to, I don't know, 30 years, 40 years. So that one's more about like, is it with your sun? Is it, so like right with your sun? Is it on an angle, meaning the ascendant, descendant, IC, MC? Is it in an angular house, first, fourth, seventh, or 10th? Pluto's going to be more like that. Like, is there something in your chart that makes your Pluto very strong? Otherwise, if it's just kind of off and alone and Sagittarius somewhere and, the 3rd house, yes, it's going to affect that place, but it wouldn't really affect this dramatic thing. Now, maybe it would. If it does and you think it does, please write in. I would love to hear it. As far as Mercury and Mars are concerned, fire is going to be pretty blunt and direct. It is boom. It is action. It is, and it can feel hurtful. It can feel sting. What fire burns, right? It hurts. So people with this directness, you're going to see fire there. That's Sag, that's Aries, that's Leo, right? Water is going to be more, especially with Mars and Mercury, like water. Think about if you're in the sea or in a swimming pool and you're trying to run and sing at the same time. It's not going to come out that well, right? So it's probably going to be more under the surface, maybe a little more manipulative if you're talking Scorpio. A Scorpio Mars is going to be pretty strong, but it's going to be strong in that hey, kind of like the Pluto stuff, I'm going to maneuver, I'm going to do it this way or that way. Pisces and Cancer are going to be more the they may tend to be more of the, subtle behind the scenes under the surface, and then choosing, both if you're blunt, direct, or if you're subtle and indirect. Those are just words, right? You get to decide how you use it. So is it gossipy and malicious behind the scenes or indirectly, or is it malicious and stingy, blunt, right? We're all choosing those things. What you're trying to figure out is what you are and if it makes sense. Air is going to be really air as far as Mercury and Mars, they're going to be a little more gossipy. Um, Depending what sign, they might just think it's fun or whatever, but they're going to think it through, and they're especially Gemini is going to use their voice and talk about it a lot. It could be prone to more the indirect and especially with Libra and Gemini, they don't want to hurt the other, so they'd rather just go talk behind their back, which just make sure it's good talking behind the back. I don't know. Aquarius is just going to say whatever, wherever, right? So those are the air signs. Now, the earth signs are going to be a little more logical, practically minded. They're going to want to have strategy behind it. There, especially like Mercury, it's got to be logical. It's got to be fact oriented. And the Mars is going to be strategic and the same, like, okay, let's make sure this gets us somewhere at the end of the day. So a philosophical reflection would be like, why are people more forgiving? So think about it. People are more forgiving of subtle drama. And why is bluntness often perceived as more confrontational or problematic? So we did end up there in the conversation because he was right. He said, yeah, you are right. When we deal with Teresa, we know exactly what we think. And to me, there's a safety in that. And he said, I don't really feel safe with that because it causes this angst in the group. So that was part of our conversation. Very, very interesting. So why do you think that is? I feel like people who are upfront, I don't see them as drama or confrontational. I see that I appreciate it. I'm like, oh, even if it stings sometimes, I'm like, oh, at least I know where I stand. What I despise is behind the back stuff. I despise it. And usually I'm just like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with that person. That's a lot of people. So, like, but why do you think that is on Earth? Like, why? And it really makes me, it's super, you can tell I just get so excited. So, Scorpio, the sign Scorpio is often perceived as a scapegoat sign. They get stuff blamed on them a lot when it was really the whole group, or they didn't really do it. People just like to put blame on them. I've seen it so much for like really no reason. And so I was thinking this could be a partly why, because Mars does rule Scorpio. Rule means it has a place, it has a home there, it's able to work well there. And maybe that, because I've often wondered, like, why is that a thing with Scorpio? Well, maybe people just get this reputation as kind of like a troublemaker or a dark, moody, broody type. So let's just blame them, everyone. Everyone will go along with it. I don't really know. What do you think? Um, I just find it so interesting. And as I've thought about this and many other things, like the understandings that occur just because of how people look at things or how they feel things or they define things so differently. There's so many misunderstandings, and that causes drama. Right? And so this is why a lot of times you'll hear me say, "Oh, I hate this word." So the really trendy words like spirituality or boundaries, you should have boundaries, or create your boundaries, or get more spiritual, or this is my spirituality, or I'm spiritual, right? I gag at those because I'm like, that could mean so many different things. And that's where I feel like some of our misunderstandings come with our loved ones, the ones that are close to us, even with ourselves. Like, do you even know why you feel certain things? Or did you even think about drama at this level? Like, huh, I hadn't. I'm probably seen as a very dramatic person, and I'm not. I'm real, or I call myself real. Maybe you would call me drama because I'm a pretty straight shooter, and I'm going to try to hold it in as long as I can before it's just going to throw up because I just can't hold it in any longer. And I'm going to say exactly what it means, and it's going to sting and it's going to hurt. Now, I could see that in my chart. And so, a lot of times through my life, I've been told, stop talking, stop saying that, you're blunt or feeling ashamed. And through astrology, I have found, oh, that's not going away. And not only that, that's a superpower of mine. And not only that, I'm supposed to be that way. And it's not going to stop. So now, fast forward. So I decide, no, this is what I'm doing. This is blah, I'm going to do. I'm going to blue. I'm going to throw up, right? And I get myself into a lot of trouble. So then I stop talking and then I don't use my voice, right? I'm 50 something. I can't, 52, 53, I don't know. So then I stop using my voice, right? And I don't talk at all. And then I'm like, I'm going to use my voice. I'm going to use my words. And again, I'm going to go back to this is how I am. I'm not going to stuff who I am into a box and cover it up and just be like, all politically nice and whatever. And with that, there are also things in your chart and energies you have where, yes, in some situations, and I still don't know how to maneuver it that great, right? This is where I'm at now in my development. But it's like some things can move ahead of that, like diplomacy or subtleness. I don't know if I'd ever be really good at being subtle. But so if you don't understand what I'm about to say, that's totally fine. Just know you can learn this, and you can learn this for your kids, and you can learn this for your partner, and you can learn this for anyone you know good enough to know their birthday. Their birthday, maybe the time they were born. So my Mars and Mercury are together in Leo. It is so my communication style and the way I go about it are sitting together. They are aggressive, they are confrontational, and Leo is about me and also helping other people become them. So if you know me well enough, I'm going to throw up and be like, look, this and this and this and this, and get real and figure it out. And this is what you do. And this is your pattern. And I do this. And this is what I do. I can take stuff pretty well. I can listen. If people want to tell me stuff I'm not doing great, and then I will take in what I want and I will shit out the rest. It's kind of how I think about it. Just get rid of what I don't want, but take that feedback in. So I have that in my chart in the 11th house, which is about groups and podcasts and all of that. So yes, I am throwing up on people and groups and friends, and it's a rough placement, right? But going back to what I said, it's who I'm supposed to be. It's how I'm supposed to do it. And at the same time, I have Venus that can come in because Venus touches it and says, hey, maybe do it with a little niceness involved. I also have Saturn that comes in and touches it and says, hey, why don't you ask yourself first, does this need to be said? Or, Saturn is logical, it's grounded. It's like, what's real? What's real? What's not real? Right? So maybe if you just leave the room or the conversation, you won't cause a bomb to go off. Right? So I'm learning, how do I bring these forward? Not everything comes forward at the same time. Not everything has to come forward at the same time. And we all know this because we all wonder if we have multiple personalities at one time or another because there's so many different voices in our heads going off. Isn't this awesome? Isn't this, I love it. So then when you're talking to your loved ones, or someone's being blunt, or someone's, doing the maneuvering, all of that, like, maybe you can understand it more. Maybe you can come in and help them learn it. You have to learn it first. And that's what all of these videos and podcasts are about. As you can tell, I get super excited. And I know I didn't say this, but I have Pluto on my ascendant. So I have all these really strong, boom, things that are probably going to be offensive to a lot of people. Anyway, so where do you stand? Where do you stand after all that? Do you appreciate the bluntness, or do you prefer things to be handed more subtly? And what do you think your chart says, or what do you know your chart says about the way you feel about things? Take a moment, really take some time to reflect on these energies and how they show up in your life. As you can see, it's so interesting to me, and it never lets me down, I'll tell you that. So do you feel like you're more Mars, Mercury, or Pluto? Or do you have just one? Are you like me and all three are like right out there? And especially when it comes to drama. So next time, sorry, sorry. Next time you're experiencing group drama, how might understanding all these energies at play help you navigate it better? Like if someone just says something blunt and fast, could you be like, oh, you must have a fire Mars? You have an Aries Mars, something like that. Or, ooh, got some fire in you, that hurt, that stung. Or, oh, that was super logical, that's got to be earthy. Or, ooh, you really wanted to talk and get this out there and speak to one another. Oh, you got some air. Or, that was kind of under the surface maneuvering. Maybe a little passive aggressive, I want to say, but it's not always that, right? So you've got some water there. Trust me, I have a water, sun, and moon, and I use my communication style passive aggressively all the time. And then I'm like, oh, no, we're not going to do that. Anyway, here is the question for you again. Do you think directness or blunt honesty causes more drama? Or does subtle manipulation and behind the scenes gossip? Where do you stand? What do you like? How do you feel about it? All right, see you later. Okay, bye.